So hello guys and welcome back. We have now here some explorations of our decks for the standard format, and I am leaning again to the tribal route. And this time we're going to check the popular or one of the popular tribal deck archetypes that exist in the game, including those of course in the older formats such as Pioneer and Modern. So we're going to see this build, call it as Mardu Humans for the Foundation Standard. I've known that there's new cards from the new set that has somewhat got a potential to be included in the tribal reference for the humans, and we're going to discuss today if the Mardu version would be really have the potential to become a top tier archetype. So we're going to view stats first. We have 33 creatures, 2 battle, we have missed the battle card type, 1 enchantment, 2 instants, and 22 lands. So basically more of these line up in a bit, but my choices here would be that having these several one-offs would mean that we have already had variants of options in the main deck prior to the sideboard phase of the game. We can still answer some relevant threats in our game 1 or giving us an advantage in the game 1. So starting off first with the creatures, I'll discuss you later. Battle are your 1-drops. So you can see here several choices of your 1-drops that can still matter in this kind of build. So starting off with our version of the new Kellan in Foundations, Kellan Planar Trailblazer. So it's basically a 1 to cast 2/1 human Fairy Scout, but it has this ability that it can become a bigger creature later on with this ability, wherein you can do some mana sink in the late game. So if Kellan is a scout, it becomes a human fairy detective and gains this ability that it does combat damage to a player, and so the top card will liberate, and you may play that card. And you can pay 3. If it's detective, it becomes a 3/2 human fairy rogue and gains double strike. So it becomes an efficient attacker later on. Can also give you card advantage by exiling top card, and you can play those cards up till the turn after you deal this combat damage. So we have 3 copies in the deck. Next is a copy of Norin Swift's Revivalist. I considered him as only one of this build because of its ability that it will not only going with the curve but also this specific ability. When a creature you control becomes black, you may exile it and you may create that card from exile this turn. You can see that these other creatures that has benefits of entering the battlefield would get you some good card advantage and board advantage. So that's why we can have some good synergies later on. If not, you can be able to draw Norin on the first turn, or you can have it on casting on turn 1. It doesn't matter because it will just have this shenanigans later on with your other creatures. Now for the other 1-drops, we have 3 copies of Novice Inspector. It gets you clue to have some ways to card draw or have these artifacts used to your Warden. At the same time, it goes also with the Norin's ability that they can be exiled and be cast again from exile to do another ATB effect. So with these 3 copies, we also have 3 copies of Recruitment Officer, which can do a mana sink and not only become a 1 to cast 2/1 attacker, but having this ability to dig up a creature from your library top 4 cards. And of course, Warden, it goes well with adding counters on it, and can also tap your creatures artifacts to scry 1 and put a counter on Warden. And later on, if it has 3 or more counters, it can become a good attacker with flying and vigilance, which is also efficient in our game plan to having these counters, which we'll discuss in a bit. Now for your 2-drops, we have your variants of 2 utilities and also pump effects. So first off are copies of your Copper Card Vanguard. This is a pseudo auto-include for this build because of course visibility. It's a good 2-drop and also pumps other humans you control and gets them a Ward 1 effect. So 4 copies of that. And of course, we have Inti, Celestial of the Sun. This is also a human knight. That is ability that can also get you to discard a card and put a counter on target creature and gain trample. And also, whenever you discard one or more cards, exile the top card library, and then you may play that card until the end of your next end step. So, in a way, putting counters on it would also help the Warden of the Sky, Inner Sky, gets this benefit of having 3 or more counters and having him flying and vigilance. So that is for the true dub for the effect support. These other variants here would just only have some specific role in the deck. So we have first MTGArena, Dauntless General. It has this ability that enters the battlefield, exile target player's graveyard. So graveyard shenanigans will be answered mainly in the main deck by this card, and also can be used to protect your humans. Sacrifice her, humans you control gains hexproof and is indestructible until end of turn. So with that one of in the deck, we have also here copies of Knight in Grace and Knight of Malice. These are specific with the matchups wherein it can have hexproof from specific colors, which also helps to protect itself. At the same time, having a first strike would also benefit. Like for example, if your creature has player controls a black permanent, it gets additional +1/+0. Given that you have also Mardu in these colors, if this is also black, you can play this creature. Your Knight of Grace will becomes a 3/2 first striker and has hexproof from black. Also, in similar fashion, Knight of Malice would also get you to hexproof from white and gets +1/+0 as long as any player controls a white permanent. So this benefits in any matchups. Like for example, you got opponents having spot removals for white, such as Get Lost. This cannot be targeted from that effects, and also spells and abilities that are white from your opponents. And the other 2-drop in the deck are copies of Resolute Reinforcements. It is just another human that can also produce these tokens, which can also fuel your Warden, and also at the same time becomes another attacker, in a sense, that can get you board advantage with this ATB effect. And now for your 3-drops, which somewhat highlights this build for becoming a Mardu humans, are copies of your Alicia, Wu, Loves of Fate. So these 4 copies of the deck, whenever it attacks, put up some counter on it. It has first strike, and has this raid ability that will win your end step. If you attack this turn, return target creature card with mana value less than or equal to power to the graveyard to the battlefield. This goes well that if you notice with that of Inti's ability. Like for instance, you can curve with Inti, you discard a relevant creature card, and at the end of your 3rd turn after combat, you have this raid effect that you can return the creature that was discarded by Inti back with Alicia's ability. So in a way, it gives also a utility that your graveyard becomes an important factor in having this kind of synergy to maintain your board advantage. So make sure that we have this one as no curve. We have decided to have a playtest or playset copies of this in the main deck. And our more of the other utility in the 3-drop category are discards. Copy of Midrange Recruiter, which can also become a trained troops for instance. But this ability that also can enter and pump creatures is also very important in this deck, and can also be dig up by the recruitment officer. And also, of course, a copy of Lorem Third Path, since most shenanigans now includes your opponents having enchantments or artifacts in the main deck, like Leyline or Orobras Forge. Then you have Lorem the Third Path to answer those. And at any instance you need to draw a card, then you can have this one of ability to get you additional cards to your hand. Whereas if in dire situations you need to draw those cards so that you can remain in an advantage against your opponent, even though they have also drawing a card for this ability. And last but not the least is of course Knight of Wales, which is also a human. This can be also convoked. Notice that we have several 1-drops and 2-drops in the deck, which makes this one easier to cast as early maybe as turn 3. So we have this ability that can also reveal creatures mana cost equal to the number of creatures that was able to invoke it, and also gets you to somewhat refill your hand, whereas you get to have also a 4/4 creature with also can be pumped with the Copper Coat Vanguard. And other pump effects that considered one of copy is your War Leader's Call, which also gets you an anthem effect and can also have this ETB damage to each opponent, and much more if you imagine this in with display, and you have Alicia and Inti synergy ongoing. More of the ETB effects would also deal your opponent's additional damage, which can really hasten their life total to 0. Now for the effects that have make me also consider here, aside from Get Lost, is of course this card, which Invasion of Gobakan. So the return of this card could be really relevant in your deck because of its ability that can delay a specific card from your opponent's hand. You will note their game plan at the same time, and also if you can be able to attack this one, it can flip into this Lightshade Array, which can also have an anti effect, and at the same time can protect your creatures with this ability to sacrifice hexproof and indestructible until an end of turn. So that with the specific removal here will Get Lost, I think the main deck would be really sufficient in having this specific spot removals added, whereas we don't really need to commit in the main board as we focus on the tribal archetype first before doing the sideboard plan later on. And last but not least, our lands. We have, of course, with the return of Secluded Courtyard and Foundations, we have now that it is now become an efficient choice for this deck to have, along with, of course, Cavern of Souls, which makes our humans uncounterable. And more of the fix, of course, Inspiring Vantage, Concealed Courtyard, Blackleaf Cliffs, will also be able for you to have a fix for the black-red and make sure that you have an untapped mana by turn 1 and turn 2 and turn 3, and added support with Battlefield Forge and Sulphur Springs. So no basic lands in this deck. We hope so that we can still work this one out in the sideboarding phase we're in. We can still have several mana fix, which would not really affect the sideboard plan of this deck. And last but not the least, for our color distribution for deck stats, it's mainly white with this number 26. Next is red with 13, and lastly black with 6. But our production is pretty much even. I'm pretty sure with this kind of mana fix for the humans, we don't really need to worry of their colors. We only need to have this other mana fix for the non-human spells that we have in this deck build. And average mana value is 2, but we can see that 17 cards of mana cost is under the 2 mana category, and secondly 12 for the 1 mana cost for the curve. And last but not the least, we check on if there are tokens. We have 3 tokens in the deck: Clue token by the Investigator, Night token produced by the Imudane Recruiter, and Map token, which also generated by the Get Lost spell. And I think that's pretty much it for this deck tag. I think there's already people playing this in MTG Arena and MTG Online, as this is now Foundation. This is now legal to play in the those 2 platforms. And if ever you've seen this kind of deck build here, just let me know in the comments below as what you think of their variants, or if you're planning to build one, just let me know in the comments of this video what will be your basis or your other ideas so that we can share and exchange conversations with. So that's pretty much it, guys, for this deck tech, Mardu Humans by Foundations. Don't forget to like, subscribe, notifications on, and thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.